morning, dear students. Welcome to the Institute for Open Learning. For those aspiring ideal teachers pursuing a diploma in education secondary and a diploma in education. I am your tutor, Mr. Smanza, for this subject, Business Studies, Module 1. I can be reached at the above mobile number 081 440 339. Our class for today will be examination based for 2020. The class content of our presentation or our class for today will therefore include the important topics for the examination preparation. It will also summarize the 3 examinations, that is May, August, and November 2020. The presentation will also serve as an examination guidelines in terms of preparation and writing the examination. Students, take note that this presentation for today will not serve as a scope for the said examination, but only as a guide for such an examination. Let's look at the summary of the topics of discussion for today. We will discuss the business terminology, the societies in any economy, the economies and sectors, the role of the government, the types of companies that includes the multinational companies, certification at work, communication, the aspect of measuring, classification of businesses in economy, and any other important topics. Let's start with the aspect of business terms for this presentation. Students and all stakeholders in the business activities are advised and required to first understand the business terminologies in order for them to understand fully the operation of any business activity. In relation to teachers, it is important for them to fully understand the meaning or the subject itself in order for them to effectively and efficiently deliver quality services to their students as expected by their employer. Let's look at the following terminologies. You are advised to read and understand the term private and public business enterprise. Look at resources, economics, specialization, division of labor, needs, wants, bartering, a few to mention. Read more and understand all business terminologies. Now, let's look at the evolution of business activity in society, which are termed as the traditional and the modern society. Now, looking at the history, bartering system in the evolution of business activity was the first approach where goods and services were exchanged without the money aspect, where goods to goods were exchanged as the business activity. Whereas, for example, maize was exchanged with bushmeat, where you'll find that someone has maize but does not have meat. So such people will exchange good to good, for one to have what he doesn't have, for the other one also to do the same. Now, this process, as the world was changing, came to a stage where the exchange of good to good had to be substituted with the aspect of money, where goods and services were now in exchange of goods with money. Now, that process or that stage was therefore and is therefore referred as to the modern system in the modern society. Look at the advantages and disadvantages of such two systems in the evolution of business activity. Please read and understand. Now, in any state, in any country, for the government to operate effectively, there are economies or economic systems that are being chosen or are taken in use in order to effectively govern the government or the state in that case. Such types of economies therefore includes the market economy, the planned economy, and the mixed economy. Whereas the market economy is the economy that is morely controlled by the privately owned individuals or companies in such an economy, and whereas the planned economy is opposed in a sense that such economy is morely controlled by the state. Decisions and the allocations of resources are being done by the state. And the other approach in governing the economy of a country is that of a mixed economy that takes in use of the market and the planned economy together. Whereas all the aspects, the elements and the features of the two economies are found in such a mixed economy. Now, what are the sectors that one may get in any of the said economies? We have the primary sector, we have the secondary sector, and the tertiary sector. Whereas in the primary sector, raw materials are being extracted direct from the ground. Then comes the secondary sector that uses the resources or the raw materials that are being extracted direct from the ground to produce goods and services from such materials. Whereas the last sector is the tertiary economy that provides services to the industry. Read and understand, as the presentation is only there to summarize the guide towards the examination preparation and writing. Now, let's look at the role of the government in such economies. What is its main role towards its people? The government is therefore or is there to provide the public goods and services. We are talking about the public infrastructures such as roads, the hospitals, educational institutions, tertiary and non-tertiary, a few to mention. It is there to protect the natural resources such as trees, water, animals, a few to mention, and this can be done through implementing and developing the policies and the regulation for that purpose. The government has the mandate and the responsibility to distribute wealth and income in society fairly and equitably. It is also there to manage the economy. That is to summarize all the activities in the economy, and also to encourage competition, which should be controlled through the development and the implementation of policies and regulations. Now, we have talked about the economies. We have talked about the business activities in such economies, the sectors in such economies. Now, those businesses that are found in the economy have sizes, and therefore, for all stakeholders, needs to understand the different types and the sizes of the businesses that are found in the economy. Now, how do you measure the size of a business? There are few features that all stakeholders must take into consideration in measuring the size of its business, and that includes the market shares of the business, the level of the sales turnover. The number of employees is also one of the factors that describes the size of a business, the value of such a business, and the value of the capital employed in such a business activity. Of course, the profit is the main and the major factor to measure the size of the business. Let's look at the classifications of such business in any economy. What is the importance of classifying businesses in two categories? This is to compare the business growth within the specific type of industry. The classification is also there to enable the government to set important duties and tariffs on specific industries in the economy. Also to analyze the changes in the size of the sectors. It also helps to identifying the changing consumer spending pattern in the specific industry, and to assist the government in planning for the future. The multinational companies is one of the type or the type of businesses that one may get in any economy. What is the meaning of multinational companies? These are companies or organizations that operate internationally in more than one country. It also has the advantages and disadvantages. Please read more and understand the nature and the features of such a business. Understand the advantages and disadvantages. Let's look at the job certification at a workplace. Any organization, any business cannot operate without employees, which is referred as to the key and the main source of the profit of any organization. Without an employee, there is no business activity. Without an employee, there is no profit of any organization. Now, what does the employees want? in their work relation, which is very important aspect for the employer or the organizational management to know or to take note. The aspect of working condition, which must be, of course, be an improved working condition, conducive for that matter. The management must take note of the opportunity to advance its employees, provide training, give activities and introduce approaches that stretches the employees' knowledge. Through trainings, send them to universities, give them work activities that are done in teams so that they share knowledge and skills. Take note of the work overload aspect, where the employer should know that an overloaded employee does not perform effectively due to too much work or activities or responsibilities imposed on such an employee. Therefore, the targets cannot be achieved at the required and expected time by the employer. Employees also want respect from the co-employees, even with their supervisors or the management, so to say. Relationship with their supervisors is very important. And most of it all, who does not want money, which is one of the most important aspects that drives a person to look for employment. It is financial reward. In short, about job satisfaction at any workplace. Let's look at the aspect of communication in any business activity or in any relation that may include the family or personal relation. If one asks you a question, or a student, a learner asks you a question, teacher, what does communication means? A simple question, and in a simple explanation, one would say is a process of sending and receiving information in any relation from the supervisor to the employees, from the employee to the supervisor or the management, from a parent to a child, from anyone to the transfer of information from one person to another person in simple terms. That is communication. Now, this communication takes place in two different forms. That may include the face-to-face contact, for example, in meetings, telephonically, through email, fax, letters, a few to mention. Please read and understand the approaches or the types of communication in any organization or business activity. Now, during the process of communication, there are some challenges that are identified as factors that hinders the effectiveness of communication between two or more than that parties. And such challenges includes the technology, the language aspect, culture, and lack of listening skills. A few to mention. Read and understand. Read and understand what do we mean when we say technology, language, culture, listening, and other important factors in this relation. Now, that is in brief about the major important topics of the content of this class. As we have mentioned earlier, this class is there to serve you or to guide you in the preparation and writing of your exam. Now, let's look at the few tips in preparing you to write or towards your preparation to write your examination. Please, you are advised on a social basis to pray before you start preparing for your examination. You are also advised and required or to understand that all questions in the examination are all from the content of the study guide provided to you by your institution. You are not limited only to such a study guide, but you are advised to search for more information through internet, libraries, and any other source that you may find necessary for this purpose. Make sure you understand the outcome at the end of each unit, which is very important as it summarizes the content of the unit. Please make sure you get information in relation to the venue and the time of writing in advance before such a date. Do not forget to carry enough material necessary for such an exam. And such materials may include, of course, pens, watch for the sake of time, ruler, calculator, a student card, and any other material that is required in that case. That was the aspect of preparation. Let's look at the tips during the examination. Again, on a social basis, you are advised to pray before you start writing. Please make sure you first read carefully the examination instructions in order to avoid the disqualification and loss of marks. You are also not allowed to take any form of note into the examination venue. This is also to avoid disqualification from the exam. Please note that all marks allocated to the questions serves as a guide towards the content required in order to avoid losing marks. The content of your answer must be guided by the marks allocated at the end of each question. Make sure you understand the meaning of the verbs in any question in the examination. The verbs are provided and explained clearly in your study guide. And such verbs includes terms such as discuss, briefly outline, differentiate, compare, a few to mention. Please read and understand. Do not list or state when you are told to discuss. Do not discuss when you are required or asked to briefly outline. Understand the meaning of the term. When we say brief, make it short. When we say differentiate, the term explains it itself. Different. What is the difference between the required terminologies? When you are told to list, make sure you only name or state the facts straight without explaining. That is, in short, about the tips during the examination. Take note of also to read more or further on the aspect of leadership and management, Read the types of leadership, the qualities therefore required in leaders and managers. Look at the aspect of budget, the advantages and the disadvantages, and the types of budgets. Look at the aspect of private and public sector as part of the business terminologies required in this case. My dear students, this is in short about the summary of our presentation for today. Take note of the discussed purpose of this presentation. And this brings us to the end. My dear students, I wish you good luck.